The insurance pointsmen know that every car on the road carries a story. There's a car on the way to the hospital carrying an elderly couple, playfully bantering about who their first grandchild will look like.
Not your business.
The insurance pointsmen know it's not just a car in traffic. It's bringing two generations together. Every story is different and every story matters. That's why the insurance pointsmen have been doing what they do since 2005 in proud partnership with 702. Insurance is a licensed insurer and FSP.
When you're running a small business, you need someone who speaks your language, who understands when you talk innovation, growth, scaling. Someone like MTN Business and 702. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards, from the townships to the suburbs and everywhere in between. We want to talk about you and your business. Go to primemediaplus.com to enter your business or nominate one you know. Because once we start talking about where you are now, you'll be well on your way to reaching your next. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards. Let's talk shop. T's, C's and more on primemediaplus.com.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's 1 minute past 1, time for Eyewitness News.
This is EWN.
ANC Eastern Cape Conference postponed, and Presidency says plans afoot to relieve Police Minister or Commissioner Fani Masemola of his duties amid fraud allegations. A very good afternoon. I'm Monkey Zikoko. We begin with breaking news. The Eastern Cape High Court has ruled that the ANC's Eastern Cape Provincial Conference should be postponed. In its ruling, the court says the conference should be delayed until internal disputes have been resolved. Now, the conference, which has been marred by legal challenges, was due to take place from Thursday until Sunday. We'll have more on this story in our later bulletins.
also maybe a consideration around copper being used in sound bowls and things like that for rituals to produce a high vibration around things like meditation and spiritual connection?
Well, I would think that would depend on the particular religious tradition, right? So if there's a need to create that level of hype, then we know that within religious traditions, that use is employed. But in the main, copper is used as a religious symbol in the actual worship rituals themselves, not with what it would produce, but because of what it is, its ability to conduct electricity, it's to be malleable. Those things make it conducive in a sense. Yeah.
And then when it comes to, I know that in ancient Egyptian tradition that it was used to store water and used to purify and to shield against negative energies. Is that something that is still practiced possibly today in any cultural, spiritual or religious practices that you are aware of?
In terms of how it would be incorporated into spiritual practices?
Yes, because we know of it to be used as such in ancient Egyptian tradition, but do you know of it being used as a way to store water and to purify spaces and to use as a shield against negative energies?
Well, most certainly I'm aware that it's used as a shield for negative energy. But I think in spiritual practices in the main, copper is used, for example, in the wellness framework that emphasizes religious experience and holistic wellness, right? It demonstrates how meaning attached to material continues to evolve in response to changing sort of cultural and spiritual context. So what is particularly interesting is how these uses show that meaning making is often ongoing and adaptive when framed in more individualized ways. These practices still draw on like shared cultural ideas about healing and about connection. And in this sense, copper continues to be a bridge linking contemporary spiritual expression to broader evolving conversations on well-being and community.
And then I'm curious then, just in closing, around how one can use copper. I know it can also be used in balancing the body's energies. You touched on like the jewelry. What can people do if they're curious to explore using copper?
Well, let me say it like this. There's been no scientific affirmation, I would say, that copper has this actual spiritual connotation, if you would like, that it actually has in itself inherent healing properties, and it can be a conduit to the divine, right? But I think what is important to understand and what is interesting in how modern uses of copper show up is that it reminds us that we hold that what we hold sacred is never just about objects, but it's about the relationship and meaning communities build around them over time. So in this way, it becomes a quiet witness to people across generations, across connections, or to create connections and to sustain memory and give the shared expression to what matters most. So copper is something that's been there from
for a very, very long time, and we're gonna have to leave. Yes, we're gonna have to leave it there, Doctor, as we need to go to the news. But thank you so much for your time, and as the doctor reiterated, we're the ones that can place meaning onto it. 7:02 afternoons at 7:02.co.za for more on Belief Matters. It's just after 2:00.
This is EWN.
A very good afternoon. I'm Mungi Zikoko. The Eastern Cape High Court has ruled that the ANC's Eastern Cape Provincial Conference be postponed. In its ruling, the court says the conference should be delayed until internal disputes have been resolved. The conference, which has been marred by legal challenges, was due to take place from Thursday up until Sunday. Tshwane Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise has labelled the corruption allegations against him as a political gimmick to decampaign the ANC ahead of the local government elections. A 2.9 billion rand security tender awarded to 22 companies in 2022, including one that was owned by Modise, recently came under scrutiny at the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry. It was revealed at the commission that two separate bid evaluation committees previously recommended that the tender be cancelled due to sheer irregularities in the bidding documents. Responding to calls for him to answer, Modise reiterated during a media briefing today that he resigned from the company before he became a councillor.
Perhaps it's important that I put context. I resigned immediately when I became a councillor. It's crystal clear, and we have provided evidence, and the declarations are there, and they've been proven. And perhaps it's important that you know that this is a political gimmick, that is a campaign towards the 20 local government elections.
In the Western Cape, police detectives are currently in Saldanha Bay investigating new claims from a community member about the alleged whereabouts of missing child Jocelyn Smith. Jocelyn's mother, Kelly Smith, Jaquina Pollis and Stefano van Rijn were sentenced to life behind bars for the little girl's disappearance from Middelbos in Saldanha Bay in February 2024. Western Cape Police spokesperson Andre Trout says at this stage no tangible evidence linked to Jocelyn has been found.
While no tangible evidence has been found at this stage, every lead continues to be thoroughly investigated. The case remains open and active, with detectives pursuing all information locally and beyond our borders.
In the Eastern Cape, the Hawks are now investigating the cause of a fire that gutted the historic Botha Scawu building in Mthatha. The fire ripped through various levels of the 11th story building on Tuesday evening. The building, which is named after the late Amapondo King, is a heritage site housing 9 government departments. Nhlanhla Mabaso reports.
The Directorate for Priority Crimes Investigation in the Eastern Cape has confirmed it's now been roped in to investigate the Botha Scawu building fire. Spokesperson Diphile Mhlakuvana.
The only thing that we can confirm is the fact that we have taken over the investigation as part of our mandate. And therefore, we are investigating the fire that has burned the building at Mthatha.
He says the cause of the fire has not yet been determined.
At the moment, we are not really sure, or we are not certain as to what caused the fire. Therefore, the speculations that are going around on social media, we have not yet attached the charges to the actual inquiry that we are doing.
Mhlakuvana says a team of capable investigators are working on the case. Meanwhile, firefighters remain on scene to deal with any flare-ups. Nhlanhla Mabaso, Eyewitness News, Mthatha in the Eastern Cape.
And in the Philippines, parts of the capital, Manila, have been brought to a standstill due to a protest by transport workers. Hundreds of workers are striking over rising fuel costs in the country. Diesel and petrol prices have more than doubled since the war in the Middle East broke out last month. The strike comes days after President Fernando Marcos says he was working to secure new sources of oil. The Philippines is currently in a state of national emergency. Gold is trading at $4,437.62 an ounce. The rand is at 17.07 to the dollar, 22.77 to the pound, 19.69 to the euro. Brent oil is at $106.19 a barrel.
In Amalgam, heading in and out of the Joburg CBD, expect some delays on Main Reef Road between Anderson and Church. And in Edenville, there's also slow-moving traffic on the R24 westbound between Edenville Road and the Gilolies interchange.
A partly cloudy Thursday in Gauteng with afternoon showers and thundershowers still expected. Temperatures have peaked at highs of between 28 and 30 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, the Eastern Cape High Court has ruled that the ANC's Eastern Cape Provincial Conference be postponed.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Relebogile Mabotja
Live, streaming countrywide.
on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856
92.7
and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 2 o'clock, the second and final hour of 7:02 afternoons with me, Relebogile Mabotja. And as we jump into the second hour of the show, Wendy Nola's not with us today, as we would usually be doing Nola Knows. But we're going to be jumping into a conversation around the business behind luxury's wait list culture. Why must I wait for that product? Why are you guys not just making more based on supply and demand? Michael Zahariv will join us. Then we wrap up with a conversation around food security and the cost of living in South Africa. Cassandra Potgieter, Head of Strategy, Marketing and Communications at SA Harvest, joins us for that conversation. So get in touch with us on 011 883 0702, SMS us 31702, tweet at Relebogile M at Radio 702 using the hashtag 702 afternoons and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
Your voice,
Your life
your afternoon radio
on 702 Afternoons.
with Relebogile Mabotja.
Let's talk about the business behind luxury's wait list culture. We're joined by the co-founder of Luck City, somebody who will know all about it, Michael Zahariv. Michael, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here with you this afternoon.
Michael, let's talk about what luxury is before we can start defining the particular level we're referring to when it comes to wait list. And because you have a business that speaks to luxury, what is the level? Because in South Africa, with the different economic statuses that people have, one thing that's luxurious to one might not be luxurious to another.
Yes, of course. And I think in this case, when we're speaking about luxury, we're speaking specifically about luxury items. And luxury means a lot of different things to different people. But when we're speaking about luxury items, we're generally talking about brands that have been around for many, many generations, sometimes even centuries, and that appeal to them, to users because of their heritage and their quality and their ability to hold value as well. So something that will stand the test of time and be able to become an heirloom that you can possibly pass down. So really the ultimate luxury items. We're talking about watches, we're talking about jewelry items from prestigious brands,
Yes.
and as well as more recently, handbags.
So can I ask a question just around luxury's waitlist culture? In terms of people that have to, and this might not be what your business does or even your a world, but because you deal with luxury in a certain level, I'm so curious as to your thoughts on it. There are these luxury 5 to 7 star restaurants that will have a waiting list forever. But if Beyonce were to call, suddenly there isn't a waiting list. Can you talk to us about how that works? Because the understanding is we are fully booked, but some people we're not fully booked for.
Exactly. I think that's what it is about. It's really about protecting your brand. So a lot of the time, what these brands have realized is because they're so in demand, and it applies to restaurants much the same as other brands, is that because they're so in demand, they don't just want someone who's willing to wait 2 weeks or 1 week or even a month. They want to make sure that they're curating the clientele, specifically picking who they're putting in that restaurant, or in our case, who's able to buy the handbag or watch. And I think there's a misconception there that's very important with the word wait list, because it just implies that if you wait, you will get served, kind of like a queue, but it's not a queue. A wait list is just people who are interested. They can choose someone from the back of the list, the middle of the list, the front of the list. It's not about a queuing system of first come, first serve, essentially. So I think that's very important.
Okay, and I think you explained that so well that, like you say, it's not like when it's your turn, we will call you. It's not a doctor's appointment where you're waiting to be next or at the clinic. So let's then look at, you were starting to speak about the items that we are going to talk about. So, your jewelry, those family heirlooms. Are shoes by any chance included in the list?
Well, I think there might be some particular brands that have some particular niche models, but generally we're speaking about, the higher end brands, iconic items. So, for example, in the world I'm familiar with, it's more like a Rolex, especially a sports model Rolex. When it comes to handbags, it will be an Hermes Birkin or a Chanel flat bag. And, all of these items, for your listeners, just to have some perspective, are trading, new, if you can get them, from about 200,000 Rand upwards. So, that's what makes it even more shocking, is the case that, if you can afford this at the 200,000 Rand upwards range, you're not necessarily even able to buy it.
So in terms of, I recall not so long ago, Sarisha Naidu of Real Housewives of Durban, who we know is exceptionally wealthy, together with her husband. And she posted a video sharing what it takes. I think it was Hermes that she was speaking about. She was sharing what it takes, that first you have to start by buying, some basic items before they let you even be considered to be on a wait list to buy bags. You'll correct me on the brand, but I know it was a big brand where, she mentioned like she started with buying some pieces that are more accessible until she reached a level where you're part of the clientele that gets the call.
Exactly. So I assume I would guess you're talking about Hermes there, and the Hermes Birkin bag is arguably the most famous bag in the world. As I mentioned, these bags generally start new from about 250,000 Rand and go far upwards from there into the millions, depending on the leather that you get, etc., the finishes. And the way the Hermes waitlist works essentially is, as you mentioned, you have to build up your reputation with the brand. So they want to make sure that you're not only going there for the top of the range item. You're not just in it for the Birkin, you're in it for the brand. And that includes people who are buying belts and clothing and shoes from Hermes, but even people who are buying crockery, cups, plates, because Hermes also has a home line. So they're really looking for you to show that you're completely immersed in the brand. And if you can prove that, they will offer you the ability to buy a Birkin. And again, it's not you can choose your color and finish. No, no, no. They'll just say, here's a Birkin that's available to you. It might be blue, it might be gold, it might be brown. You don't have an option, and then you get to purchase it. So that's how their wait list works.
So maybe help us understand the business model and the psychology behind that whole situation and how it works. That why, if it's so in demand, I mean, you touched on the protecting of the clientele. Why, if it's so in demand and you've got so many more wealthy people, are there so many hoops to jump through? And from me, I'm not sure if, like what you said, they want a clientele that's now loyal to the brand, and they're not just coming for a special bag. Then what is the business? Help us understand what the business is if their goal is not get as many sales as possible.
Well, I think that in a way you could argue that it's getting them more sales. So, for example, if everyone wants to have a Birkin bag, and we know 90% of those people only want a Birkin bag, they're not really interested perhaps in Hermes shoes or clothing, then one of the ways to, increase your sales arguably is to say, okay, well, you have to buy some shoes and clothing, etc., before you can buy a Birkin bag, because the Hermes Birkin bag is the ultimate status item. But then there's also another very important part to remember. Because the Hermes Birkin bag is so iconic and so popular, part of it being luxurious is the fact that it's exclusive. So if, for example, everyone who could afford a Birkin, which in many countries is quite a lot of people, especially within circles of the wealthy people, then it becomes less desirable. And as soon as it becomes less desirable, it takes away that luxury feel, because people want to be exclusive. You don't want everyone in the room to have the same handbag as yours. That doesn't make you feel special. And that's part of the luxury appeal. So I think that's what Hermes is able to do. And it ties in further than the Birkin bag into the fact that you can't just pick your color and your finish. So for example, if everyone wants a black Birkin bag, for example, well, they're controlling that a bit by saying, no, you'll get to buy the Birkin bag we allow you to buy. You don't get to pick and choose. So I think it's about protecting exclusivity and therefore protecting the value of the brand, and then also driving sales into some of the other categories that might not be as popular.
In terms of them then deciding, okay, we've seen you buy this, this, and this already, we're now going to welcome you into the club and let you offer you a bag to purchase. Do they curate that for you? Is it something that they say, okay, we're going to check out this person. We see their personal style is like this, so we're going to offer them the crocodile, skin one?
No. It's unfortunately not that curated. It really, well, at the end of the day, it really depends on your status. So like you mentioned earlier, if you're a celebrity, etc., that's very well known, you might not even have to jump through hoops. You might be able to request. You'll have different privileges. If you're someone that's just working your way up by purchasing items here and there, it will be very much based on supply. So what generally happens with the Hermes specifically is they'll have stores all over the world, and essentially they'll send 2 or 3 or 4 Birkins to a store. That store's sales team will then be able to say, these are really good clients, let me offer them a Birkin bag. So it's not a case of the client is client driven. It's more a case that the stock comes in, the store then decides. Perhaps there's some curation at that stage, but based on the value as a client who is offered it.
All right, we need to take a break. When we come back, we continue. 011 883 0702 in the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
Aubrey Masango.
Weekday evenings,
8 to midnight.
National Commissioner of Police has been charged around that Katmatlala contract. I did say last week, if you remember, that truth just sounds different to lies. It just sounds different. It just has a different resonance. And it doesn't matter how loudly you say what you say. Because people think sometimes that if I scream something, it suddenly makes it true. Or if I say it very quiet. Just truth by itself has a particular resonance. And I think that we are about to see Useons, the Popper Khantan.
Aubrey Masango,
8 to midnight on 702.
702.
Imagine beginning your holiday to the sound of the ocean and ending it with a sunset encounter with the Big Five. Club Med is bringing their brand new beach and safari resort to KwaZulu-Natal this July. It's the first of its kind, combining a beachfront escape with a private safari lodge experience all in one holiday. Plus, it's fully all-inclusive. Think gourmet dining, activities, wellness, and more. Take advantage of the Club Med season opening sale from the 24th to the 27th of March. Book at clubmed.co.za. T's and C's apply.
Dreaming of your next getaway? Whether it's a sun-soaked beach escape, an adventure-packed tour, or a luxury cruise, Flight Centre is your center for travel. We make travel easy, affordable, and stress-free. Plus, you can enjoy exclusive traveler perks with our frequent Flighty Rewards program. Flight Centre's got you covered. Visit your nearest Flight Centre store or online at flightcentre.co.za. Flight Centre, your center for travel.
Did you know that Baby Things has something new for baby? Shop Baby Things' new range of nappies, Only available at Dis-Chem and Dis-Chem Baby City. Designed for a comfortable fit that's soft and gentle on baby skin and ultra absorbent with up to 12 hours protection. And even better, you save an instant 10% when you swipe your Better Rewards card. Yours for just R170.99 per pack. Shop baby things only at Dis-Chem and Dis-Chem Baby City.
Gauteng is currently experiencing high water consumption. To avoid water interruptions, residents are urged to use water sparingly to allow equitable supply. Act now, save water. Every drop counts. This message is brought to you by the Department of Water and Sanitation, Rand Water, Gauteng Provincial Government, City of Johannesburg, City of Tshwane, and City of Ekurhuleni.
When you're running a small business, you need someone who speaks your language, who understands when you talk innovation, growth, scaling. Someone like MTN Business and 702. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards, from the townships to the suburbs and everywhere in between. We want to talk about you and your business. Go to primemediaplus.com to enter your business or nominate one you know. Because once we start talking about where you are now, you'll be well on your way to reaching your next. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards. Let's talk shop. T's, C's and more on primemediaplus.com.
Spend your afternoon
with Relebogile Mabotja
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
22 minutes after 2 o'clock, and we are chatting around the wait list economy when it comes to luxury items with Michael Zaharif, co-founder of Lux City. Get in touch with us, 011 883 0702, and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. We've been speaking luxury, iconic handbags from global brands like Rolex, or not just handbags, rather from watches to handbags from global brands like Rolex, Hermes, as well as Chanel, where it's not just about supply and demand, it's about exclusivity. 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. Michael, what should people consider when they are wanting to look at, because we've had conversations around, things like watches being investment pieces. But what should we be looking out for in this particular luxe market of items that are going to become these investments that increase in value, where, being part of the wait list is worth the effort?
Yeah, well, I think the wait list is a great indication of if it's an investment piece. Generally, when there's a wait list, it means that there is much, much more demand than there is supply. And we see this with Rolexes, for example. At Lux City, Rolexes sell for about 28% more than they sell new. So essentially what that's saying is that the market is willing to pay 28% return immediately for a brand new Rolex. So it really shows you the demand, and certain pieces like those Rolexes become investment pieces the moment you buy them. The same is true for Birkin bags. They also sell at a premium to what they are new. So if you're able to obtain them, you're able to resell them for more. And what's quite interesting is that the brands have caught onto this, and they actually don't want it. They don't want people who are buying these items to resell them. And that's one of the things that can get you essentially kicked off of a wait list or kicked your reputation down, is if the brands see that you're reselling them. But obviously there's a huge temptation to resell it, especially when you can make an instant profit.
All right, there's some questions coming through. Tabiso Fosler says, hi, Lebo, great show as always. Are luxury goods like bags used as a form of communication, signaling wealth, or the phenomenon of peacocking? Look at me, I just dropped 200K on a bag. To me, a no-name, genuine handmade leather bag is just as good, if not better, than an Hermes or Louis Vuitton. Or is there something that we laymen aren't privy to? Or am I poor? And they spelled poor PHWWWWWA. Taviso from Fosloris.
Yeah, I mean, to comment on that, I suppose at the end of the day, these are fashion pieces, and I think that's what it should be seen at. And fashion for many, many consumers is part of their identity. It's how they identify what you wear, how you present yourself to the world. And the wealthier you are, I suppose you want to be able to present yourself in a certain manner. It doesn't mean that this holds value for everyone, but it does certainly hold value for many, many people out there. And I think rightfully so to them. And it really feels part of their story or their identity.
Can we talk about the blatantly branded luxury goods? So some of the, the quiet luxury that I would sort of say we're talking billionaire status, not multi-millionaire status. Are there any secrets we should know about? Because these ones are still susceptible to, I don't want to say dupes, but even the fakes that go around. Yes, watch Bad Influencer on Netflix, where there's all the things about the fakes that go around. But I'm curious around the quiet luxury where the brand is not visible.
Well, I think with the quiet luxury, there are even more fakes. So I wouldn't say that the fakes tend to be based on loud or quiet. In fact, the scammers now, or the fakes, tend to do it based on price range. So what we actually find is more of the expensive items, the top of the range, are generally more quiet luxury. So, when we're looking at Chanel and Hermes, and what we find is because the items are at a higher price point, the quality of the fakes are also that much higher, because that counterfeiter knows that if he's able to trick you essentially into purchasing it, you can be purchasing a fake that costs 50, 100,000, which we've seen, as opposed to purchasing a fake at 1 or 2 or 3,000, or whatever the case is. So certainly there is a huge fake market specifically around these quiet luxury brands.
Which brands would you say in the space we're talking are brands that people think are iconic investment waitlist pieces, but are actually not? Because I saw a diagram, I wish I could find it somewhere, but it was showing, in terms of watches, for example, where Rolex falls, where Longines falls, and there were brands I didn't even recognize that were top of the pile.
Yeah, I think that's what surprises many people. So what we've seen in our Luxity State of the Market report is that most people assume that the more popular a brand is, the better it will hold value, but that is not true. So, for example, Hermes and Chanel, as far as popularity in South Africa, are quite unpopular. I think they make up only like 1 or 2% of the searches in total on Luxity. Whereas if we look at Louis Vuitton and Gucci, they make up 33% of the searches on Luxity. So that's a huge difference. However, both Hermes and Chanel return much better than a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci. So I think the misconception generally comes that if a brand is more popular or more known, that it returns better, but that's not always true. And also, it doesn't mean if a brand is very good at return. So for example, Hermes Birkin has a really strong return. It doesn't mean that every single Hermes item or every single Hermes bag is good for returning. And I think that's what makes it quite interesting, because if you are looking at investment pieces or what return, you really have to do your research similarly to how you would do if you're looking at a stock market or buying a house. You can't just purchase stocks or purchase a house and expect to make money on it. It unfortunately doesn't work that way.
Oh, we're going to have to leave it there, Michael. I know who to call when I'm ready to get into the Hermes wait list and all the tips and tricks. Where can we find Luxity online?
It's luxity.co.za, and we also have a store in Sandton City and nationally as well. And the important part is that there's no wait lists for Birkins or Rolexes at Luxity. So remember that.
Thank you so much for chatting to us around that. So yeah, Luxity, where you can get access to luxury brands. It's 2:30. Time for your latest Eyewitness News headlines. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Relebogile. Good afternoon. Tshwane Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise has labelled the corruption allegations against him as a political gimmick to decampaign the ANC ahead of the local government elections. A 2.9 billion rand security tender awarded to 22 companies in 2022, including one that was owned by Modise, recently came under scrutiny at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The presidency has confirmed that while National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola remains in his position, there will be interim measures to relieve him of his duties to focus on the allegations levelled against him. Speaking on the midday report on 702, presidency spokesperson Vincent Magwenya says there is a process to find an interim body to take over policing duties from Masemola. And the National Consumer Commission has announced a recall of certain Ford Transit and Transit Tornado custom vehicles. The recall affects 582 vehicles from 2022 to 2026 model ranges, which were sold nationwide between 2021 and 2025. The Commission says the issue relates to a faulty battery that may produce a strong acidic smell, a hissing sound, or even visible gas emissions inside the vehicle. Now, those are your headlines this EWN and more at 3 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage in Amalgam, expect some delays on Main Reef Road between Anderson and Church Street, while in Edenvale, we still have slow-moving traffic. R24 westbound between Edenvale Road and the Kiluli's interchange. In Roodepoort, heading towards Randburg, expect some delays on the N1 northbound between 14th Avenue and Bayers Nodia. If you come across any other traffic issues, kindly WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
This Sunday, something big is going down. The DP World Lions are in the one-day cup final at the DP World Wanderers Stadium. The match starts at 10 a.m., so it's the perfect day out with friends or family, and tickets are only $50. Look forward to big hits, big moments, live music, great food, iced cold drinks, and your shot at 50,000 Rand with the one-handed catch. So, round up your crew, fill the stadium, and back the pride. Sunday, the 29th of March at 10 a.m., DP World Wanderers Stadium, hashtag the pride of Jozi.
These holidays, millions of South Africans dream of a well-earned getaway. The reality, however, can be very different.
I like a jacuzzi without fish.
Accommodation can look great online, but in reality...
This deck gives tetanus, not a tan.
Sadly, they've been flat-fished. That's why City Lodge brings you SOS. Visit saveourstay.co.za for City Lodge hotels nearby and up to 30% off. Getting flat-fished is hard. Check in to easy. T's and C's apply.
Do you remember the promise Nelson Mandela made to our country's children that they would grow up with dignity, protection, and hope? This Human Rights Month, we honor that promise as the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund marks 30 years of changing how society treats its children. In 2026, we celebrate a legacy that still calls on all of us to care, uplift, and make every child's future brighter, and to follow his example by loving children the Nelson Mandela way. The Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, celebrating 30 years of impact. Learn more at nelsonmandelachildrensfund.com.
Welcome to Nando's Taste-Demonials. Real reviews by real people. Today's testimonial comes from Jeff in Kempton Park. Now, Jeff seems to be a man of very few words. We've asked him to use his few words to tell us what he thinks of our flame-grilled peri-peri full chicken with any two sharing sides for $2.83. Jeff?
Nice.
Well, there you have it. When the meal is such a mouthful, you really only need a few words, I guess. Nando's. Oh, what a place.
702 was in conversation with pharmaceutical company Sanofi to find out more about respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, and how you can protect our babies and children.
I wouldn't say it's misdiagnosed. I would say it's underdiagnosed, right? Because often enough we think it's just a flu, it's just a cold, it's just a lung infection, but it's most of the time it's RSV. And like I said, this can lead to severe disease like pneumonia and bronchiolitis. So it's definitely something that is underdiagnosed because it's not often tested for. It's often diagnosed as a lower respiratory tract infection, and it's often seen as just a disease of the lower respiratory tract infection. So I wouldn't say misdiagnosed, but I would say underdiagnosed.
Visit primemediaplus.com to hear the full interview. 702 in conversation with Sanofi. Together against RSV.
Coming up on 702 Drive with John Perlman.
702 Drive with John Perlman is coming up from 3 to 6 p.m. John Perlman, how are you doing? Happy Thursday.
Yeah, doing very well, thanks. Hope you well, and a happy Thursday to you too. I didn't know it was a thing, but happy Thursday.
It's a thing.
Any day of the week can
any
be
day
happy that day.
Exactly. Even happy tomorrow in advance.
Thank you.
In terms of what we were talking about earlier, if you could implement some rules regarding things like around neighbors, or if you're living in a complex, what would those rules be? Many people who live in sectional titles, estates and whatever, and those living, they're like noise levels. People mowing lawns at 10 to 7 in the morning, noise during the day, dogs that don't stop barking. Others are like, listen, children are just too much. I would live in a child-free complex. To which somebody said, just so you guys know, there are retirement villages if you want a child-free complex.
Yeah.
But would there be any preferences that you would have if you could implement? Because somebody said if you're braaiing, I expect an invite. That should be a rule. You can't braai or make curry without inviting me over.
No, I wouldn't support that rule because I don't think you should be obliged to invite anyone to dine with you that you don't particularly want to have dine with you. So that wouldn't be one of mine. You know, it's funny as you were just, setting up the question, I was thinking to myself, I'm very wary of rules.
Yes.
Because I also make a noise, and if I say, well, somebody could say, okay, well, we're going to have no shouting and swearing during big sports matches, because then I'm in deep trouble.
I didn't take you for a shouter and a swearer.
No.
You're a couch ref, couch coach.
No, I'm just furious. I don't give myself a title, and I find all sorts of people to scream at, and then
I'm sorry, that was so unexpected.
And then this thing of noisy kids. So I don't have children, but starting from tomorrow, I've got 2 grandsons staying, and they're really loud.
Yep.
How
old?
They're boys. One's 8, the other one's 10, and they rambunctious and they run around. I mean, they're wonderful, wonderful boys, but they're boys. So do I say, well, okay, in general we want quiet, but for the next 6 days I seek amnesty.
Yes.
So with virtually everything I want to say my neighbors shouldn't do, I must admit I'm very wary of this being put down chapter and verse, because
That's
I'm
a good
potentially
point.
in trouble.
Because I also said, if you want a child-free complex, what happens if you're all, living there, and then suddenly a couple there announces they're having a baby?
Yes.
What then?
Yeah.
Like, when's the due date? Right, let's prepare for you to be removed from the complex.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's basic stuff. Loud parties at 2 a.m, keeping other people awake. But I don't know.
What's coming up on your show today?
Well, I'm a little clearer about that than I am on the last question. So, good afternoon, everybody. Monetary Policy Committee announcing latest interest rate decision. I think it's pretty certain, nailed on, that there's going to be no change. But anyway, we'll update you, and Stephen Curtis will give us interpretation and analysis, which is as important in many ways as the number. Police commissioners, we do not have a good record in South Africa. Their terms tend to end early and badly. We'll talk about why that is. Are we making one bad choice after another? Speaking of bad choices, most government departments appear to make them regularly when it comes to the spending of your money. Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke will be joining us after 5. Her latest report on national departments and provincial departments is absolutely familiar on the one hand, but it certainly does not make it any less bleak. Just the continuous wasting of public money, the failure to deliver services. But the most alarming thing is the absolute absence of any signs of improvement. They come back with the same stuff year after year, same problems, same departments by and large. And she nevertheless remains this incredibly clear, positive person. So while it all sounds depressing, she will be at it, insisting that we can do better, and this is how. I'm looking forward to that. We'll do that after 5.
702 Drive with John Perlman, coming up from 3 to 6 p.m.
Spend your afternoon
with Relebogile Mabotja
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
20 minutes to 3 o'clock. Let's have a conversation around food security and the cost of living in South Africa. We're joined by Cassandra Potgieter, Head of Strategy, Marketing and Communications at SA Harvest. Get in touch with us on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. Cassandra, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Rebogile. I look forward to it.
Cassandra, can you share with us, before we delve into our topic, what SA Harvest does and is all about?
We are a food rescue organization. When I say that, people always look at us a bit perplexed. We basically tackle the food system and find surplus food and get it to communities who don't have it. And we deliver it to the communities at no cost to the communities.
When you say surplus food, are we referring, excuse me, to farmers having too much stock that's about to go off? Are we referring to shops where at the end of the day, if the date says X and it's about to expire, or what are we referring to when we say surplus food?
All three. And we actually mapped out the entire supply chain, where a lot of studies have revealed that South Africa is not a place of food insecurity because we don't have food. We actually throw away about 10 million tons of food annually. That is while we have 20 million people and counting without knowing where their next meal will be coming from, basically food insecure. And that food comes out of a supply chain system from production all the way through to retail. And we actually found that household waste is the smallest section of where we have a problem.
Ooh, can you chat to us about that ecosystem and where we as consumers are not seeing the waste happening from, whether it's manufacturing or production or harvesting?
Absolutely. So, like I said, there's already a significant amount of food moving through the economy every day. So the issue that we are tackling is what happens when food can no longer be sold quickly or produced optimally, and it falls outside of what we call the commercial system. So we have a pipe leak, basically on 3 levels in our pipeline. That would be on farm or production level, on market level, as well as on policy level.
So what can people be doing then? And maybe we should, before we get to the solutions, paint the picture for us of what you see and are aware of that we as the lay folks not living that world should be aware of, because we might be restricted to our households, and maybe you kind of see people's plates filled with food at a buffet or at a restaurant, and maybe you are observing once in a while at the end of the day where they're taking down stock at your supermarkets. What do you know that we wouldn't know or be exposed to? And maybe share whatever stats or information you can.
Absolutely. We, as a data-driven organization, not only logistically, we basically consistently monitor economic movement in terms of agriculture and retail to understand where food is going to move next. So that's basically the more informal way of saying we consider the macro environment as well as consumer horizon. So what's coming next for South Africans? Because we need to understand where food is going to go. At this point in time, we work with some universities, and the next 6 to 12 months are likely to produce what we call a 2-speed food economy. So staple pressure will ease a little bit, but elements from a nutritional perspective, like for instance, protein, transport, especially household overheads, will be actually the real pain points that's on the horizon for us. So even though most headlines indicate that inflation has softened, or we'll hear later today what the situation is, but staples are moderating. That's basically, it can create the impression that the pressure is easing broadly, but for households, the lived reality is very different. Better inflation numbers do not automatically translate into a more nutritional basket. And on the household pressure story is also a food story. So people might find the calories, but nutrition becomes harder to afford.
Oh, I think you touched on something so powerful there around the calories versus nutrition. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, I want us to start right there so that we can really get the correct perspective, because it's easy to say, well, food is cheap. But what food is it and what nutrition is it offering? 011 883 0702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
Part of the 702 family.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Lekalakala, station Pomola. I love 702 because 702 always keep us updated. Everything that happens around the world is the first one to let us know what is going on.
Welcome to our 702 family. Let's walk the talk.
Big thinkers need epic spaces to think. That's why TEDx Johannesburg has partnered with WeWork South Africa as its official workspace partner for 2026. WeWork members get TEDx big ideas, bold conversations, and sneak peeks behind South Africa's most influential TEDx events all year at WeWork, Sandton, Rosebank, and Cape Town. Be part of an epic work evolution. Sign up as a WeWork All Access member. Visit wework.co.za today. Made for work, built for business.
Spinners on Get Prize Drops gives you the chance to win a share of an epic 2.5 million rand in cash and tech gadgets. Enjoy a spinning spectacular and unwrap exciting wonders where fortunes fall from the sky and you could claim amazing prizes with every round. Simply bet 2 rand or more on selected pragmatic play slots Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays and enjoy sweet success. Hollywood Bets. It's more fun to spin with us.
T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Herschel Gibbs here with more than just a crypto ad. Crypto payments are now live on 10Bet. And there's more. Download the app, deposit, and get an extra 5% in cash. The future of betting, faster, safer, and smoother. Play now at 10bet.co.za. 10Bet is a licensed betting operator and supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 shall be permitted to bet. Betting can be addictive. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Small business owners speak a language of their own, and it's a language MTN Business and 702 understand very well. That's why we're celebrating SMEs who walk that entrepreneurial talk in the 702 MTN Small Business Awards. From the townships to the suburbs and everywhere in between, small businesses are proving that big things can grow from bold ideas. If that sounds like your business or one you know, go to primemediaplus.com to enter or nominate them. Because once we start talking about your business, who knows how much further it could go. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards. Let's talk shop. T's and C's apply.
702 Afternoons
with Relebogile Mabotja.
11 minutes to 3 o'clock. We continue our conversation around food security and cost of living in South Africa with Cassandra Potgieter, who's Head of Strategy, Marketing and Communications at SA Harvest. Your calls on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. Cassandra, talk to us about the difference between the calories and nutritional value, and in your world, how you need to apply whatever those metrics are to the work that you do.
Thank you for that. We are if I can take a step back, the households that we support in the form of delivering food to the community-based organizations that feed those households, we operate with an awareness that we basically know that there's a poverty premium being paid on certain foods, and it's a real risk because a lot of families may get calories based on more affordable foods, but it's not quality nutrition in relation to protein and fresh foods. And there are various pockets that we look at from a nutritional basket perspective, being your protein, your and the various elements required. But even though many of the communities that we serve have access to food, it's a lot of the time not affordable, not nutritious, and also efficiently distributed. If you take into consideration the fact that access is shaped by location. So where people live determines transport costs, storage costs, and affordable, nutritious food is sometimes just physically not available.
And you've touched on some important things. Can you just give an example so that it's very clear for all of us? You've touched on fresh fruit and proteins and things like that. In your world where you're trying to get the right food to the people who need it, what are you looking at more of that might be different from a standard diet? Is it adding more proteins because the individuals you support maybe get access to a meal a day? Is it looking at increasing carbohydrates? Like what does that look like in that world in terms of what would the ideal low cost living plate look like?
So the nutritional experts that we work with gave us a basic breakdown, which we can backcast based on the food that we've rescued. In our environment, the food that we do have access to is given to us free of charge. We never purchase the food. That basically means whatever is in the system comes out of it. That's the first hurdle. So what we try to narrow the gap with is we have an established pipeline of very, how can I say, they are compassionate and understanding donors. And when I say that, it's because when they always phone us to please come and collect their food. However, things like proteins are not always available in that system because of cold. If you break the cold chain, we all know what happens. People get sick. People can even die. And the regulatory implications of releasing the cold chain into our system are huge. So it's very rare that we get, for instance, access to those proteins. And when taking into consideration that 1 in 5 children are stunted in our country, that means they will not be able to have an opportunity to fix that part in their development. It's permanent brain damage. That's a quarter, that's a fifth of our children basically never being able to catch up to learn, to access the economy. Those are the ramifications of a nutritional basket being skewed. And when you take into consideration 11,000 children die every year because of not only no food, but malnutrition, the picture becomes quite more severe. And what we try to do is when we source the foods to the maximum extent that we can, we try to look at the nutritional basket based on the data that we've got. And then we reach out to various donors and various entities to say, look, we've got this gap. Please, can you help?
What is considered food waste that you can still use, and why is it still safe that it's no longer usable where it was before?
A lot of the times the surplus that we collect in various stages of the supply chain have different criteria. For instance, with farmers, there's no market request for it. They simply don't have the mechanisms to get it to where it needs to go. It's not aesthetically pleasing. I mean, it's an ugly potato. We can't use it.
Or a discolored egg with eggshells. Discolored eggs or disfigured eggshells, yeah.
Exactly. So it's aesthetically it's not nice enough looking to go to the shelves, and it's edible, it's healthy, it just doesn't look nice, and we'll fetch it and we can distribute it. On retail level, it becomes a lot more tricky because the the expiry date and the best before date and the sell-by date are things that we look at very, very closely because of the regulatory onus placed on us when we distribute that food. We cannot distribute food that is expired. It's as simple as that. And the sad part is that some of that food does make its way back onto the market with black market avenues. And that is just another mechanism that tries to address the food insecurity market that we've got at the moment. The food that we do get donated as part of a CSI program tends to be nutritionally valid and it ticks all the boxes. However, the food that we get given based on the fact that it can no longer be in the supply chain, it's not pretty enough, and all of those elements requires us to take it to our warehouse to rework and to make sure that it complies with fit for human consumption criteria.
Oh, and there is a question here saying, what percentage of this food wastage is the edible food that is thrown away by shops because it's past its sell-by date?
At the moment, we actually do have that stat readily available. The market share that we've established in, there's about 16% of that goes to waste. I think it's the supply chain mechanism from a commercial perspective that would leave it to such a late date. But we found that entities do make a plan in getting the food to people who need it, not necessarily in a very coordinated way. But yes, it's about 16% of that just goes to waste. We can't use any. It would have been eaten had it been dealt with earlier.
Oh, we're going to have to leave it there. Your website where people can get more information and see how they can support or assist?
saharvest.org. And we welcome any inquiries, any engagement, because I don't think people realize the magnitude of food insecurity in our country at a high level, even though we've all been seeing it lately with the Human Rights Commission inquiry coming to light in terms of the news, how severe the problem is. But any ideas or anyone who wants to become part of a system that starts addressing this problem as a society is very welcome to contact us.
Thank you so much. The website saharvest.org.
I only went for gift wrap. That's all I needed, I swear. Just tape and birthday wrapping for a little teddy bear. Now there's a pink flamingo perched right by the door. And somehow 5 new books to read thanks to the crazy store. That's crazy, crazy. That's the crazy store. Went in for one small thing, came out with so much more.
The crazy store. Hey, you never know what you might find.
This is what progress sounds like. At South African Airways, we've added more aircraft to the runway, increased our flights from just over 1,000 in 2021 to over 24,000 last year. And we continue to add more destinations and routes. It's steady progress over time. We know there's still work to do, but every day we're building something stronger. An airline that shares the resilience of the country it carries. South African Airways. Book your next flight at flysaa.com today.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We're also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct. To give you balanced programming, fair comment, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we're not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
When you're running a small business, you need someone who speaks your language, who understands when you talk innovation, growth, scaling. Someone like MTN Business and 702. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards, from the townships to the suburbs and everywhere in between. We want to talk about you and your business. Go to primemediaplus.com to enter your business or nominate one you know. Because once we start talking about where you are now, you'll be well on your way to reaching your next. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards. Let's talk shop. T's, C's and more on primemediaplus.com.
Thank you for joining us on 702 Afternoons. John Perlman is up next for 702 Drive. It's 3 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Calls for the suspension of Tshwane's Deputy Mayor mount and the search for missing Jocelyn Smith resume. A very good afternoon. Monkey Zikoko. Calls for the suspension of Tshwane's Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise are mounting as opposition parties question the city's failure to discipline him following corrupt scored an alleged irregular 2.9 billion rand security tender in 2022, which recently came under scrutiny at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Alfara Mashwana has more.
The 2.9 billion rand security tender was awarded to multiple companies to provide security services for some of the city's properties and assets. However, the tender was flagged as irregular twice before it was issued, but the companies involved took the city to court. One of the 22 companies that was awarded the tender is Triotic Protection Services, which Tshwane Deputy Mayor and Finance MMC Eugene Modise resigned from and claims to have sold. DA mayoral candidate Celia Brink says Modise must be given the boot.
Can we please have an explanation from the mayor why Eugene Modise, against whom there are serious allegations that he is benefiting from tenders in Tshwane?
However, Modise says he's done nothing wrong and claims he